Hello YouTube, this is NJ4Wider5, and what I have for you today is one of the simplest battery tab welders you can find on YouTube. It's probably the easiest one I've built to date. It's pretty simple components. Most of these components you can find locally. I don't think there's not too much you can't find locally, with the exception of the silicone wire and the foot switch. Those you might not be able to find locally. I know where I live, down on the south part of Seattle, you can't find none of that locally. I plan on using this fan for cooling. I plan on using two 7.2 amp hour 12 volt batteries I pulled out of UPS's. I'm going to run those in parallel. I'm going to be using this 10 gauge wire I got at the local hardware store. They're going to be ran into each battery, ran in parallel. I'm going to cut off the ends, add a 16 gauge silicone wire, and then twist it all together and run it inside of this copper lug. Then I'm going to use this Timco crimping tool to crimp it all together. I may add solder. From the hot side, it's going to go onto here and out the other end. And I plan on using some 8 gauge silicone wire. 8 gauge silicone wire is going to go to the end of the hot and the cold. And at the very end, I plan on pushing in some 12 gauge solid core. 12 gauge solid core I'm going to push in, and I'm going to use some electric blocks to clamp it down, shrink tape around it. That should take care of the parallel connection and the electrodes. The solenoid is going to require power, so I'm going to be running that I'm going to run it to a switch, so I have control of keeping it off and there's no accidents. I'm going to run it to an extra momentary button just to have there, not for the main switching. Then it's going to be ran to a DC jack that's going to be on the outside of the case I decided to use. From this DC jack, it's going to be ran into this plug and this Timco foot pedal. I picked up 2 of these on eBay for, I believe it was 2 for $10. These are pretty neat and cheap. There really isn't too much to this build. I'm going to add a couple of LEDs or some voltmeters. Probably I might add 2, just so I can keep track of the batteries and make sure they stay balanced. You know, I don't want them to get out of whack and get warm. Forgot I'm going to be using a fan for cooling. And the case is something I found at my local Goodwill. Might have been Value Village, I'm not 100%, but I found it for under $5. A little Coleman lunchbox. The Coleman lunchbox, I believe, is 9.5 by 7 by 7 inches. I plan on placing the 2 batteries in here, drilling in a couple holes on each side, a couple holes in the face for the electrodes. At the top, I'm going to drill a couple squares for the LED. I'm going to put a LED to let me know when it's on, maybe one to know whenever it's triggered. The button's gonna, one of the extra button, the extra momentary button is gonna go up here. Yeah, there really ain't too much to this build. Should take too long to build. After I'm done building it, I'll be right back. I'll explain how it went together, if I ran into any issues, and then we may do some testing. There really isn't too much to this. It's probably going to be the most simplest battery tab welder you will find on YouTube. There is a couple others exactly like it. Their builds are exactly the same. They're pretty simple to build. I would search for those when you get a chance. You know, maybe compare before you build one yourself. but this is a quick way to build yourself a battery tail welder. And I'm not really too sure about the performance, but we will find out. We will find out after the build. So thanks for watching, and I will see you after I'm done building. Okay, we're going to start off with prepping the case. I like to use masking tape wherever I plan on drilling holes. So I'm going to probably put the vent holes on this side. This side is going to be the side that has the fan. The front is going to have the two holes for the A gauge. Probably a couple LEDs. The top's going to have the voltmeters and the momentary button, the extra momentary button. And yeah, I like to prep the case first. Let's get the case prepped and ready to go. Finishing up the case, I decided to throw these in the side with vents. I'm going to go ahead and hot glue it, push it in like that, and hopefully it stays. Alright, let's prep 10 gauge wire, going to the solenoid and paralleling these two batteries. I'm going to go ahead and combine these two wires with, where'd it go? With these wires, and I'm going to use 2 lugs. 2 copper lugs, and of course some heat shrink. Here's the quick schematic or pictorial. Well, there you have it, YouTube. A battery tab welder made from two 7 amp hour batteries pulled from 2 UPSs. Used with a solenoid from a Honda ATV. I believe it was some kind of 400 version. Fan pulled from a old server. 8 gauge for the wiring. I used 10 gauge solid core for the electrodes. A couple electrical blocks to hold it in place. I'm probably going to put shrink wrap or Kapton tape around this. We have a DC jack where I can put any switch I prefer. I'm going to use a foot switch with this one. The little switch right there on the side is a kill switch, just for safety reasons. At the top I have a voltmeter that you can only see what's on there with the press of the button. That way it doesn't stay live 24/7. An extra button, just for testing purposes. This button will cause the tab weld. Master switch. This one controls the power to everything in here, with the exception of the voltmeter. It turns the fan off and on. It puts power to the solenoid relay. I put a couple of vents on the side. I used an old pin so that I didn't have any of the insulation coming out from the actual box itself. Over on the side is a fan cover. My wiring isn't the greatest right now. I'm going to clean it up after I do more testing. But everything seems to work pretty good. If I had to guess, the weight is probably around 10 pounds, maybe less. Build time was probably about 5 hours. It could have been quicker, but I kind of took my time on it. Cost is probably around 20 bucks at the most if you had to purchase the parts. 25 maybe. Most of these parts I already had, so it didn't cost me nothing to build this. I used most of the parts from my hoard. I believe it's a Timco foot switch. Put a DC plug at the very end. I also added some extra wire for length. I noticed that whenever I was gonna apply it to the DC jack, the wiring seemed a little short, so I added about another foot. I'm not sure if I'm gonna test it in this video. I'm gonna wait till my wife gets home. Once she gets home, I'll be able to test it. I like to make sure I test it with the person watching my back, just in case there's anything catastrophic. But it was very simple to build, very easy to build. Probably one of the easiest builds I've ever done, next to the 12 volt car battery one I built. Upcoming projects I still have the Powerwall. I'm still testing cells, of course. Sorry for the camera. I'm using an iPhone 6. Powerwall is probably going to take me another month. I'm trying my hardest to get it done quickly. Testing batteries seems to be most of the time. I'm sure the build's going to go pretty quick. While I'm testing batteries, I figured I'd knock out a few projects. I have another battery tab welder I'm going to be building out of two 300 farad Maxwell capacitors. I'm going to be using, I'm not sure the name, but it's a 1404 for the switch. What else do I have? Oh, a power supply. I built this power supply when I first started doing projects. It's made from a PC power supply. It's like a half PC power supply with a adjustable power supply. XL 4015. It was the first project I ever did, so I decided that I wanted to rework it. I've got another one. I purchased a blue case for it. I'm going to be doing the power supply a little differently this time. I think I'm going to be doing a lot of rewiring on the power supply. This time I'm going with a well-used buck boost converter. I have a what's it called? I have some modifications I'm going to be doing to this. It needs a heat sink at the bottom. I've got a bigger heat sink I'm going to be putting on the bottom. I was going to find multi-turn potentiometers for this, but they're really expensive when you get into the, I guess, the 200Ks and the 500Ks or the 50Ks. They start to get pretty spendy. What else do I have? Oh, I have a USB power supply I'm going to be building. That one I'm going to be using straight plexiglass. I'm actually going to be picking that up today. I'll probably be doing that next. I have a couple of screw guns that I'll be reworking with lithium batteries, of course. This one came with probably some generic lithium ion batteries. I'm going to be replacing them with some LG HB2s. The charger for this should work very good with this, and it fits all of my batteries. It seems like the Black & Decker, the Kawasaki, and I have a generic one. It seems to fit all of them pretty good, so I'm going to end up making 2 batteries for that. Probably 4S 2P. I have this little Black & Decker, I can't remember what you call it, worm drive I believe they call it. It took these kind of batteries that fit in the end. I'm going to go ahead and close up the end. I'm going to put some batteries permanently in there that I can charge and discharge. What else do I have? I believe that is it for now. So you should be seeing those videos. Also have the $50 giveaway that I like to give away every month. Well, I started last month. Average Joe won the first one. All you have to do is like, subscribe, share my videos, and that'll get you a chance to win. The more you like, subscribe, and share, comment, the more chances you have at winning. So I believe I have like 14 videos, so that's 14 chances. I figure I'll start off with $50 and then work my way as I get more subscribers. Eventually I'd like to start giving away the stuff I make. I have a bunch of Bluetooth speakers that I'll be building here pretty soon. They should be some high quality. It's probably the whole reason why I started all of this DIYing. I wanted to make sure when I built the Bluetooth speakers I was good at soldering and all that good junk, because I was horrible when I first started, and I didn't want to build Bluetooth speakers and people look at the quality and say, ah, okay, a kid did this. But anyways, that's future. So I'm rambling. DIY spot welder. Very simple, very easy to build. Please like, subscribe, and share. Comment below if you have any questions. And thank you for watching.